Hello folks, I'm here today with a kind of a throwback Thursday, if you will. Recently I got a large collection of very old school D&D miniatures, 70s, 80s, and then of course some of the 90s. A lot of them were miniatures that I have been drooling over for years when I was a kid, going to the game store with my weekly allowance as a 12-year-old, being able to pick up one miniature and never some of the collections or some of the larger ones like this Ral Partha fire giant here. So I guess as part of my midlife crisis, I am going and picking up a lot of older minis from my childhood and my young adult days, putting them together and hopefully playing for them. I've gotten some use out of some older purchases in my D&D games, but I figured I would start a series here showing some of the older stuff that I have and sometimes how I painted it, and doing a kind of retro review. So again, this fellow here is a Ral Partha fire giant from their D&D line. Like most of the 30 and 40-year-old miniatures that were in this collection, they were not always in the best shape. This fire giant is supposed to have 3 spikes here that go into his metal armor, and they were not anywhere to be found. I basically had to take 3 skewer tips, not unlike this little guy here, and then kind of shave them down, drill out the holes a little bit, and then super glue those in place. I ground the tab down quite a bit so I could put it on this 50mm base, and it would blend right in with my normal flocking routine. This guy was fairly easy to paint. As you can see, a large portion of his body is simply armor and a sword. So all of those metallics were very easy to do. I then did a series of contrast paints, washes and highlights, sometimes glazing some of the shadows back in there. I like the outcome, but I would have liked to get some more contrast between the shadows and the highlights on his muscles. This was already a pretty advanced step for me, glazing a lot of these colors in, so it was nice to stretch some of my new learned skills on such a great and classic miniature. The current edition of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition, lists fire giants as a huge creature, which should put this guy on a 3-inch or 75mm base. A lot of these miniatures were made for previous editions of Dungeons & Dragons before monster sizes were codified in 3rd edition and meant to be played on a gridded map. This giant fits nicely onto a 50mm base, which would normally make him a large creature. As you can see here, he's just about 50mm tall to the head, and of course the weapon going up about another 10mm. Puts him at just about twice the height of our loyal guardsman here. I hope you enjoyed this little retro review on Throwback Thursday, and thank you for tuning in.